human resources is the process of attracting qualified people to apply for jobs. And here you can see there can be internal recruiting, which is always great and desirable, because when existing employees move up in an organization, it builds morale and employee retention. Employees are happy to see a colleague get ahead. And when they see that, they know if they work hard, they get ahead too. There can also be external recruiting, which is attracting employees from the outside of the company. We just recently went through an external recruiting search for a new president of Memorial University. And I think she came from the University of Saskatchewan. I think that's where she came from. And she'll be here soon. Internships are like work semesters. And we have 3 here at the Faculty of Business, and I think there's 5 at Engineering, where you actually go out and work in a real-life organizational environment. The nice thing about work semesters, it gives the employee and the employer a chance to look at and evaluate each other. Now, part of recruitment involves deciding on the best candidate. And deciding on the best candidate is actually called selecting. And how do we gather the information in order to select the best candidate? Well, there's a number of ways that we do that. And one of the ways is application forms, interviews, there's some other techniques and tests. All of these 4 lead to validation. And validation is the candidate suitable for the job? Have we recruited and selected the best candidate? Are they validated to be a success in the organization? Now, a few things to tell you about application forms. Application forms allow the employer to gather information that's relevant to the hiring decision. Demographics that are not relevant to a job cannot be asked on the application or in an interview. Only relevant details such as history, education, work experience. Basically, an application form is like a resume, and it must have only relevant information. I cannot be interviewed and somebody asks me how old I am. Oh, I think you're like kind of old. How old are you? Well, you're not allowed to ask that anymore. On the other hand, if I was interviewing candidates to work in my bar downtown, instead of saying, how old are you? I would probably say, are you of legal age in order to serve alcohol? Because I would not be able to hire you to serve alcohol unless you could legally drink and sell alcohol. Now, to tell you a few things about interviews. Interviews are not that popular anymore. They're used all the time, and most companies use them, but they're not considered that effective. And the reason they're not considered that effective is because candidates prepare for the interviews and they got the best answers ready. Everything is on the internet and it's on YouTube, and you can get yourself completely ready for the interview, and you can sort of anticipate the questions, and you can come across in that interview like an absolute superstar. But that don't mean you are validated as the best candidate and you'll be a success in the job. So companies are placing more and more emphasis on other techniques and on testing rather than on interviews. Yes, they're still done, but they are not considered that effective. More emphasis on other techniques and on various forms of testing. Now, if we were in the classroom, this is where I would ask you some curveball questions. that happen in an interview. And a curveball question is a question that sort of hits you, like, what if she got in her mind asking that? But we're not going to do it because you're not here to answer. But a typical, or a curveball question, one that I've